It was a cold, cloudy night, and Mrs. Adams had just gone to bed. She woke a little while later to some light coming in through her window. The light soon went off, and the room was once again shrouded in darkness. She heard the low growl of Jack, her Rottweiler, who has been with her for the past 3 years now and has been her companion since she lost her husband around that same time. She got out of bed, grabbed her torch, and went downstairs. The little cabin she was in had no electricity due to a storm that happened the previous day. She went through the kitchen and out the back door to her backyard, where the light from earlier had originated. She saw some red smoke going off around a little bush patch and some red gooey substance on the ground. As she started moving closer, her nose caught a horrid smell that made her take a few steps back. She decided to go back into the house and call up Steve, her husband's best friend and co-worker from way back. They both studied and researched alien life forms and cultures. As she got to the phone, she heard a crashing sound from her bedroom upstairs, and then Jack wailed terrifyingly. She quickly rushed upstairs to find her bedroom in a mess. Several small pools of blood were on the bedroom floor, and Jack was nowhere to be found. The window glass was shattered, so she guessed that was what made the crashing sound. All of these events seemed puzzling to her, so once again, she decided to rush downstairs and give Steve a call. As she went down the stairs, she saw Jack standing at the bottom of the stairs. He was so still, and he stood there watching her with glowing red eyes, instead of the normal brown eyes she had always liked to stare into. She pointed her torch towards Jack to find him with many cuts all over his body, a disfigured face with his mouth so big it almost took up his whole face. His limbs also looked bigger, and his nails were far longer than she remembered. The cuts were dripping the same red goo she had seen outside, and just then, the horrid smell hit her. Jack opened his mouth, and then to her surprise, another little mouth came out and asked, "Where is it?" in a deep grinding voice that sent chills down her spine. Trembling, she replied, "Where is what?" She hadn't finished her question before Jack, or what used to be Jack, lunged at her. She quickly ran back to her room. She got to the door and just turned to close it when she felt some pressure on her legs. She closed the door and fell to the ground, and then proceeded to look at her leg. There was a deep gash just around her shin, and blood was slowly coming out of it. She took her blanket, tore it with some scissors, and covered the wound in some kind of first aid. Just then, she heard a deep thud on the door and remembered the creature just outside the door. She started trembling again and tried to figure out how to get herself away from it. She looked out the window and thought of jumping, but the ground was way too far for her to jump and land without injuries. She heard another deep thud against the door, and this time it cracked a bit down the middle. "Where is it?" she heard the creature ask once again. Somehow, this triggered a memory of her husband telling her that he and Steve found an alien artifact that he brought home to study. He always keeps his treasure in a little box inside the wardrobe. Just as she stood up to open the wardrobe door, the door gave way with a cracking sound, and the creature lunged straight for her. This time, its huge jaws clamped down on her arm, and it started twisting its neck, trying to rip her arm off. She screamed out in pain and tried to yank the creature off her arm. She saw the pair of scissors she used to cut out her blanket, and she reached for it. At that same moment, the creature yanked so hard, and some part of her arm started ripping off right around the elbow. She screamed out in agony once more and lunged with all her strength to grab the pair of scissors. She stabbed the creature all over the body, but it didn't seem to feel anything. And then, she remembered her husband always said the weakness of most alien creatures was their eyes, and she hoped and prayed he was right. She reached up and jammed the pair of scissors straight down the creature's eye, and just then it disintegrated into red smoke, giving off that horrid smell before the wind slowly dispersed the smoke. Now, everywhere was silent, and she was bleeding severely from one arm, and her leg was hurting badly. She had to drag herself out of her room and let her body roll down the stairs to get to the phone. She called Steve and told him everything that happened. He told her he would be there with a first aid team and some agency officials as soon as possible. She hung up and lay there wondering how a peaceful night had almost made her lose her arm and her life.